Welcome to Odds.com's NCAA basketball coverage with our expert, Maxwell Smart. It is Saturday night, January 2nd, 11:48 p.m. We're 12 minutes before midnight, and we are 15 hours before Max's action pops off, 3 p.m. Eastern, on Sunday, January 3rd. Thank you guys all so much for joining us. Max, my man, how you doing on this Saturday evening?
Well, Jim, it's been a long day. I've had some hot microwave bacon, which was absolutely delicious. No honey mustard on it, just honey. And of course, Jim, I've watched a ton of college basketball, learned a lot of things, lost minutes off my life, and had some of the best times of my life because, let's be brutally honest, when college basketball got ripped from my arms last year, I was distraught. I had to actually cap college football. So when it comes down to it, Jim, I'm just happy to have college basketball. The grind is real, and I'm ready to get back on the horse when it comes to my odds.com picks and hopefully wins. And I'll say this before we get started, Jim. Next time I try and triple up on a game, throw some cold water in my face.
Cold water. Well, you had an unsuccessful triple up, but you didn't have a terrible last day with us. Your streak of 7 of 8 days in the black doesn't continue by the skinniest of margins. You went 6 wins and 6 losses, down 0.6 units. On the year, you're 78 wins, 61 losses, hitting at 56.1%, plus 11.07 units in ROI, plus 7.96%, an average line of minus 110. And for you, that's a bad day, and that's what makes you such a spectacular capper. A 6-6 day is fine, but for you, it's a bad day. You want revenge, and you will get it on today's card, I believe. Are you ready to attack?
I am always ready to attack when I'm right beside you on camera.
I love it. I love it, Maxie. All right, let's rock. The first game you have chosen has a team in it that feels a lot like you. They had their season ripped away from them when they had a chance as the number 1 seed in the Maac tournament to go all the way to the NCAA tourney, and that is the Siena Saints starting their season so late in the year. Monmouth Hawks 3-2, 3-1 in the MAAC at Siena. Siena Saints 0-0. Times Union Center in Albany, New York. And let's see what we are dealing with. We have odds from Circa Sports. Circa has Siena as 4-point favorites, and this total at 152. Let's talk first about the Saints. They finished the season 20-10, 15-5 in Maac, play to finish in first place. They were the number 1 seed in the Maac tournament. They defeated number 9 Manhattan, 63-49 in the quarterfinals. Then the pandemic came, and their season was taken away from them. Senior Manny Camper returns after scoring 13.7 points and grabbing 10.4 rebounds last year. And junior Jalen Pickett is possibly the best player in the conference. He's returning after leading the team with 15.1 points per game as a sophomore. Siena's had a tough start to the year. They paused all basketball activities back on November 13th due to positive tests. Then they had to stop all basketball, and that went on for a long time. Then they got back to practicing. They were about to roll before Christmas, and they had to stop all basketball activities again on December 18th for more positive tests. They're finally back in action. Monmouth returned from their Christmas break with easy back-to-back home victories over Canisius. They hit 48.1% from the field, 42% from 3. Senior guard Dion Hammond is tough to slow down. He leads the team in scoring at 19.6 points per game. Max, your first game on this Sunday, January 3rd card, Monmouth, Siena, take it away.
Jim, when I first saw this game and I had my line and then I had what I projected the odds makers to post and open this at, I was sharpening my nails. I was dreaming about chicken tenders. And then I had my bubble bursted because I did a little research, Jim. And what that research told me was that Jalen Pickett may not be in the lineup tomorrow. Apparently, there has been rumors and reports that he contracted COVID-19 And if he isn't playing, that is a big, big red flag. First off, you're losing your point guard. I don't like to bet on teams that lose their point guard. Second off, your floor general, Jalen Pickett, is, like you said, the Maac's premier guard and a guy that will end up getting drafted after his collegiate career. What else I don't like about this Siena team and in this spot for them specifically, even though it's at home, is we're not talking about the fact that Gary Harris Jr. transferred out of Siena over to Loyola Marymount with Stan Johnson in that program. Also, Donald Carey, well, we've been watching him play for Georgetown and lighting it up. So this is a much different Siena team if you don't have at least Jalen Pickett in there to help Manny Camper. Manny Camper is a great individual scorer and rebounder. Don't get me wrong. But when you look at the depth pieces that you're left with, you're not even left with Dana Tate. Dana Tate may not be playing in this game either. So you're talking about the likes of Jordan King and Gary and Harrison Curry, the Detroit Mercy transfer, and Nick Hopkins, the Belmont transfer. I think that at this level, there's going to be successful. I don't think they're going to be 17 point per game Peter Kiss of Bryant successful. However, Monmouth has shown that with Pappas, our fellow Canadian Samuel Chaput, and of course Dion Hammond, that they can score the basketball from the three-point line. This is a team that's done a really good job of starting games and getting onto their offense. I've watched all 5 games they played. I liked the game that they played against Hofstra, and against any other team in their conference, if they put out that offensive output, they win that game and probably cover a line that is posted. When you look at Monmouth, this is a team that relies on their three-point game, and will it translate on the road is the biggest question. When I look at this Monmouth team, three-point defense is going to be critical. But when you look at their three-point defense, they do have a nice percentage. But the problem is people are shooting volume 3 points against them. They're allowing 9 3-point makes a game. If Siena is able to match that or beat that, Monmouth's going to have trouble staying bucket for bucket with Siena. However, if Monmouth is able to plug this issue that they're having on the offensive glass, which they had against St. Peter's and they had against Canisius, who are both pretty undersized teams, that's going to be something that will hurt us in the end. However, with Monmouth's ability to force turnovers and to the tune of 18 or so a game against likable and quality opponents, I have to take Monmouth in this spot. I think that Monmouth can win this game outright, Jim.
Wow.
So I wish we had first half lines because I would take Monmouth on the first half as well, because I don't think that this 4 is going to be there in the morning.
Wow. Very, very interesting breakdown, Max. So +4 -110 available at Circa. And I have to wake up early. We have an NFL show in the morning. So I have an early wake-up call. So I will be able to get you, if there's a first half available, I will be awake for it. Is that a move you want to make, and what's your range for? If
I can get 3 or 2.5, I'd be willing to take it.
Okay. +2.5 or 3 first half if available. What an interesting game to attack right off the hop. That pops off at 3 p.m. Eastern. Monmouth, Siena, Max on Monmouth Hawks +4 -110 available at Circa. We move on to 4:30 p.m. Eastern action, a team we've seen Max attack often and with a lot of success. The St. Joseph's Hawks in action here. They are 11.5 point favorites 11.5 point dogs at FanDuel. That comes with just -104 juice. They're an 11.5 point dog at Circa at -110. This total is at 152.5 at both books. St. Joseph's Hawks 0-6, 0-1 in the A10 at Rhode Island Rams, 4-5, 1-1 in the A10. We're in Ryan Center, Kingston, Rhode Island. St. Joseph's came back from their Christmas break with an 80-64 loss at home to VCU as 11-point underdogs. Leading scorer Ryan Daly, who scored 17.2 points per game, missed the VCU game with a thumb injury. He's listed as questionable to go against Rhode Island. The 64 they scored against VCU was their lowest output of the season. Their defense is poor. They allowed 90.2 points per game. The only bigs they have barely see the floor. They've been outscored by an average of 17.2 points per game. They hit just 40.4% from the field and 28.2% from three. Rhode Island came back from their Christmas break, snapped their 3-game losing streak with a 63-57 home win over St. Bonaventure. They score 71.6 points per game. They allow 70. They hit 45.7% from the field, but they get poor distribution, which is 10.4 assists per game. And you have to point the finger at senior Fats Russell. He leads the team with 13.8 points per game. That's 5 less than he put up last year. I know this team doesn't have nearly the talent they had last year, but he's got to do a better job. Maybe he will do it tonight. 4:30 p.m. Eastern, St. Joseph's, Rhode Island. Max, take it away.
Jim, with St. Joe's, I do think that Ryan Daly finds his way into the lineup at the last minute, witnessing what a debacle you must call that game against VCU. That was a game where St. Joe's had a good start, and they just faltered. Bad shot selection, turnovers, not getting back defensively in transition. And against a team like VCU, you shouldn't have those types of issues because they aren't the most prolific offensive team. However, when you look at the St. Joe's team, they missed Ryan Daly. That offensive output is probably the reason why that game stayed under. And I think with Rhode Island, you're going up against a similar and quality defense with a multitude of different guys that can defend different positions. When you're talking about Jeremy Shepard and Antoine Walker and Syracuse transfer Jalen Carey. When I look at this team, Jim, I think that with Rhode Island, scoring defense is what is going to distinguish themselves from St. Joe's. I think that with their 3-point defense at around 32%, that's going to be critical against the likes of Demeter Bishop and guys like Taylor Funk. When I look at Rhode Island, this is a team that makes you take time off the shot clock, makes you work the half court, and if you aren't patient and you don't have good, crisp ball movement, you're going to take a bad shot, and this is a team that gets on the glass and doesn't give you a lot of second chance opportunities. I think with Rhode Island's ability to dominate the glass, it's going to make it difficult for St. Joe's to get into rhythm on offense. And the last 3 games that Rhode Island's played at home, we've had totals in a variety of different number ranges, and we've seen these numbers fall short by a range of anywhere from 7.5 to 25 points. So there is value on the under. That is where I'm going to be looking as far as a total in this game for the show picks. I think that with Rhode Island, they definitely have a first half advantage. However, not knowing if Ryan Daly's in the lineup, I don't want to rush to it. I will say this, though. If Ryan Daly is suddenly announced, we're going to see 2 or 3, maybe even 4 points of line movement like we saw when he was announced out of the lineup. I think with Rhode Island, they have to force St. Joe's to not get really hot from 3. That's the main area of offensive concern that Rhode Island should have. With their small guards, there is an ability for guys like Cam Brown to really back someone up or operate in a pick and roll and take some 3-point looks. When I look at Rhode Island, this is a team that has to win on the offensive glass. They have to be the ball hawking team, and they have to force turnovers, whether that be with help defense on the low block or with lane penetrators, or it's just with old-fashioned good steals that you create from good on-ball defense. At the end of the day, this is a Rhode Island team that's played well early in days, and we just saw St. Joe's get smoked. I would be willing to take Rhode Island in the first half, but as far as the full game, I do think Ryan Daly comes back into the lineup, and then that would make St. Joe's a buy low opportunity. So for the show picks, to sum it all up, because I've talked for a while, I'll take the full game under, and then I'll take St. Joe's full game.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay, so the under 152 at minus 106 is locked and loaded for you. And then taking St. Joe's full game, basically placing a bet that Daly will be in the lineup. Very, very interesting. Very interesting take. So let's lock you in. The plus 11.5 is nicely juiced for you at minus 104. And man, do I hope Daly is announced into the lineup and you get this St. Joe's plus 11.5 minus 104.
Well, so Jim, I'll just say this. You also have to take into consideration that they just beat St. Bonaventure in a really hard-fought game. Now you're going up against what I would call one of the bottom feeders in the A10. So it is a situational letdown spot, even though it's at home for Rhode Island.
I agree, and they're not that good. They're not that good of a basketball team. They're getting 10.4 assists per game. It's a very interesting look. We have Max Smart on the St. Joseph's Hawks at plus 11.5 and the under 152.5. The Hawks come with minus 104 juice, and that is at FanDuel. And the minus 106 on the under, the juice to the over, is also at FanDuel. All right, we are locked in. We move on to 5:30 p.m. Eastern, a big boy game in the Big Ten, 25th ranked Ohio State going up against number 21 Minnesota Golden Gophers. Ohio State 8-2, just 2-2 in the Big Ten. Golden Gophers 9-2, 2-2 in the Big Ten. We're at Williams Arena in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Ohio State bounced back from their 71-70 loss at Northwestern on December 26th by destroying Nebraska at home, 90-54. They are 1.5-point favorites here at FanDuel and 1-point favorites over at Circa. Ohio State's defense is their strong suit. They allow just 65.1 points per game. They score 77.9 points on 44.9% shooting, and they're led by 6'7" sophomore E.J. Liddell, who averages 14.4 points and 6.4 rebounds. And, I mean, he was used as a freshman, but the jump he's taken this year as a sophomore, I hope we get to see another jump with him as a junior. Minnesota had their 3-game winning streak snapped in a 71-59 loss at Wisconsin. They shot 31.3% from the field, 22.6% from three. Leading scorer Marcus Carr, who Max said on this show, he said if he doesn't put up 30, they're going to lose badly. And he was on Minnesota in that spot. Marcus Carr, who averages 22.9 points per game, was 3 for 13 from the field for 10 points. They are now 0-2 on the road, 2 tough games. 0-2 on the road with losses at Wisconsin and Illinois, but they've been excellent at home all year. And they are dogs here on Sunday evening. Max, what an exciting game you're breaking down. Ohio State, Minnesota, take it away.
Yeah, Jim, I think that some people would describe it as exciting. I would describe it as possibly life-threatening. With Marcus Carr, it's a guy that I have such high hopes for. I want him to get drafted. I want him to be successful. He is from the 6, and I am just a huge fan of any Canadian hooper that takes it down south. However, I am nervous about getting on Minnesota in this spot for a bunch of different reasons. For the reason of I have been on the other side of Minnesota at home and been burnt. Now, psychologically, I'm going, oh, well, now I'm going to get on Minnesota and they're going to end up losing as a home dog when they've cashed against me as a home dog multiple times. So what I'm going to do with this game is I'm going to just do it like this. Marcus Carr at home is a different animal. Marcus Carr is not going to have Trice and Brad Davison guarding him. And not to mention Jonathan Davis, the freshman, fantastic long defender, gave Marcus Carr problems all game. When I look at this Minnesota team, This is a team that has the talent on paper to go bucket for bucket and go defensive stop for defensive stop with Ohio State. Ohio State's already shown an ability right now with this roster to not perform properly on the road. I think with Seth Towns in the lineup, it gives you at least someone that you can park in the corner, and you can limit his lack of mobility and his fragileness by just setting him up for some driving kicks. I think that with this Ohio State team, 3-point shooting is going to be critical against Minnesota. Minnesota's been a fast starter, and they've been a fast starter at home. That's where Ohio State struggled. Ohio State's been very good at adjustments. In that circumstance, you also have to take note of, in the Rutgers game, they did get aided by the refs with foul trouble on Miles Johnson. So you got to take that point with a grain of salt. Ohio State, for as solid as they are in good fundamental necessary parts of the game, they have had trouble on the road, but they are better on the glass than this Minnesota team. They shoot a 77% free throw percentage as a team, but they've had trouble with short numbers. When they win by margin, it's with a small number. So if you do like Ohio State, you probably could sell 1.5 or 2, and you have a very good percentage of cashing it. For me, I'm not going to go with Ohio State in this situation, even though my gut is telling me to. My numbers are saying Minnesota. Minnesota should be a -1.5 to 2.5 point favorite. They are definitely susceptible in the second half, but at home, if they can limit Ohio State's free throw trips, make this game an inside the arc game where they cannot get good looks at the 3-point bucket, and they can keep Brandon Johnson and Liam Robbins out of foul trouble, I think that they're going to win this game. I like the front court of E.J. Liddell, Kyle Young, and Zed Key. I just don't think it's good enough to beat Minnesota on their home floor, coming off a Wisconsin loss and playing Wisconsin's defense.
Very exciting breakdown in game, Max. Minnesota, do you want them at -102 on the money line? Or do you want them +1 at -110?
No, I'll take the money line.
Minnesota Golden Gophers -102. Available right now at FanDuel. Big Ten, big game. We move on. 6 p.m. Eastern, little ACC action. Wake Forest Demon Deacons 3-0, 0-0 in the AC at Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets 5-3, 1-1 in the AC. We're at McCamish Pavilion in Atlanta, Georgia. We have Georgia Tech as 9.5 point favorites over at FanDuel. This total at 139.5. And Max, when you picked this game, I just found this so difficult unless you have more information than I was able to kind of get, and it's just a fade of Wake Forest. I can't wait to hear your breakdown. Wake opened their season with back-to-back easy wins over weak competition, Delaware State, Longwood. Then they needed to take an entire month off due to positive COVID issues in the program. So they came back on December 31st for a glorified exhibition game. I thought it was against Div 2 Catawba Indians. Their second and third leading scorers, guard Ian Dubose out indefinitely, forward Tariq Ingraham done for the season. And those are both COVID related. They have a whole bunch of questionable players who didn't play against the Div 2 squad, Catawba. Quadri Adams. So these are the guards: Quadri Adams, Jonah Antonio, Anthony Mathis, Miles Lester. Now, these aren't key players necessarily, but there's a bunch of them. Forwards Grant Van Beveren and center Emmanuel Okpomo. Georgia Tech has won 3 straight, coming off a 72-67 win at home over North Carolina's 3.5 point dogs. Tech is led by 6'9" senior Moses Wright, who's averaging 18.1 points and 7.3 boards. Also, we have senior guard Brooklyn native Jose Alvarado, after scoring a career-high 29 against Delaware State. He was excellent against North Carolina. 20 points, 7 assists, 7 boards. I mean, he's balling out right now. Max, very interesting spot here that you are attacking. Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, 6 p.m. Eastern ACC action. Take it away.
Listen, Jim, I'm going to tell you right there, settle down with that Jose Alvarado talk. All right? Let me give you a little trip down memory lane. I was watching the Georgia Tech versus North Carolina game. It was a real nice cold winter night, and I had an over ticket, and I needed free throws just to be right. And Jose Alvarado, he stepped up, he shot the ball, and he missed it. So bottom line was he missed a bunch of free throws. He's a dick. He cost me money. Him and him alone. I hope that he slurps cock soup.
Sure.
And that no ladies of the night come to see him.
Sure.
So getting into the game, though, I think that this is – hold on. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I think that this is a very interesting spot for Georgia Tech. When we look at Georgia Tech, what have they not done well? Well, they haven't performed as a favorite, that's for sure. They've lost twice outright, but that was early on in the season. Now they're into ACC play. They have aspirations of sneaking up on the likes of Florida State and Virginia and possibly Duke to win this thing. And they got the roster to do it. They got the complementary scoring. They got the game breakers. There's a lot to like about this Georgia Tech team. The one knock that I have on them is lack of depth. When you have to bring Bubba Parham off the bench, that's your only really capable, competent, and frankly trustworthy bench scorer. When I look at Georgia Tech and I watch their games, and of course I watch a ton of basketball, I see Georgia Tech and I'm like, why did you take that shot? Why didn't you make a couple extra passes? You got 12 seconds. Work the clock. I do think that this is a game where you're going to be able to have more advantages and more opportunity to move the ball around and get those better looks. I think that one critical aspect of this game, which should play into their hand with what's going on personnel-wise with Wake Forest, is they need a better start. So I think that you know where I'm going to start to really look towards when it comes to betting this game. When I think about this Georgia Tech team and when I look at my numbers from this Georgia Tech team, they need to get Moses right. Lots of looks early, get him involved in the offense, and then let it open up looks for Michael DeVoe and, of course, Bubba Parham on the perimeter. When I look at Georgia Tech, naturally or not naturally, so far this year, they've been more of a second-half bet-on team. In this situation, though, you just mentioned Jonah Antonio and Ian DeBosi. That's 27 points per game already out of your lineup. That puts a lot of pressure on guys like our fellow Canadian Jacoby Neath, Davion Williamson, and Jalen Johnson. I don't think that they can go bucket for bucket, or they can limit Georgia Tech from doing what they want offensively. I think that with Georgia Tech, they have to have good ball distribution. They have to get to the free throw line and make them, which on average they're making 15 makes a game. The problem is they need to make them when it matters, which is the last 5 minutes of the second half. And that's where Alvarado let me down and basically tattooed "you're an idiot" on my shoulder. I think that with Georgia Tech, this is a game where you could be worried about a letdown spot. However, with Wake Forest's time off, missing personnel, new system that Coach Forbes is working these guys in, and not having any quality competition, it's got to be Georgia Tech in this spot, and it's got to be the under. I think that this game is slowed down. I think that we're seeing this game with one team in the 70s and one team maybe in the 60s being Wake Forest. And I think that Georgia Tech has to show me early that they can take care of business. Otherwise, they're a second half bet on team.
Very, very interesting game here. We can get you 140.5 over at Circa. It's 139.5 at FanDuel. So let's start there. Under 140.5 at minus 110 at Circa. And then we'll get you full game minus 9.5 on Georgia Tech. They're both. Oh, excuse me. You're getting minus 104 at FanDuel. That's nice. That's nice juice. So we'll give you that. Is this a first half play as well?
Yes, this is going to be a first half play. The issue is the line is already ballooned up, and I do have a limit of 6.5 for this first half play.
All right. First half limit minus 6.5. Of all those guys that I mentioned that were missing in action and are questionable with COVID issues, do you know if those 6 guys are going to be in the lineup, not going to be in the lineup? Do you have any? I was trying hard to get that information. I couldn't.
I haven't been able to find that information, Jim, but I capped the game assuming, even though that makes an ass out of you and me, that Jonah Antonio and DeBosi won't play. If they do play, I still don't think that there's enough on-court continuity and chemistry to go up against what I deem to be one of the top 3 or 4 best teams in the ACC, albeit in a down year.
I agree. And from all I've heard, DeBosi's out for sure. It's Jonah Antonio and those guys that I wasn't sure about.
Everybody else that you named is non-impactful, especially when it comes to my player projections. Of the people you named, I only projected stats for Jonah Antonio and DeBosi, so you're fine.
I feel you. All right, that's 6 p.m. Eastern. Wake Forest, Deacons, Georgia Tech, Yellow Jackets. It does feel like a double-digit victory for Georgia Tech at home in Atlanta, Georgia, and I feel like that's going to be a spot that I will be tailing you on. We have more 6 p.m. Eastern action, and I'm glad you picked this game. Man, it's going to be fun. Southern Illinois Salukis, 7-1, 1-1 in the MVC. Drake Bulldogs, 11-0, 2-0 in the MVC. We're at the Knapp Center in Des Moines. This is going to be fun. These two teams are rolling. Drake, 11.5-point favorites over at FanDuel, and that is the same at Circa. Both totals are at Circa at 142.5. FanDuel at 141.5. Southern Illinois undefeated season came to an end on the second of a back-to-back at home against Evansville, 84-72. Their perimeter defense was terrible. Evansville hit 17 threes, hit 58.6% from 3. The Salukis score 77.1 points per game, allowed just 66.8. They hit 49.3% from the field, and they're led by sophomore Marcus Damask. We've talked about him on this show. His numbers are getting better and better. He now scores 18.1 points, 5 boards, 3.6 assists. He went for 25 points and 7 assists against Evansville. Drake Bulldogs, undefeated and have been beating their opponents badly. They are outscoring their opponents by an average of 23.9 points per game. They hit 53.1% from the field, 41.7% from beyond the arc. They get 16.6 assists per game. Junior point guard Roman Penn averaging 12.5 points, 6.1 assists per game. Drake Bulldogs, should they be 11.5-point favorites, Max? Take it away.
I believe that they were actually 13 or 13.5-point favorites when this line was posted at the opener.
Wow.
With Drake, Jim, this is something that we had happen a couple years ago when Nico Medved was still the coach of Drake. They got off to this fantastic ATS streak non-conference-wise, carried it on to the conference, and then eventually the bubble got bursted. I can't remember. I think it was 13, maybe 12-0 before it got bursted. So with this Drake team, I like them. I like them a lot. And I like how they play defense too. That's a big thing to me. But when you look at Drake, this is a 9-0 ATS team. This is a 9-0 ATS team that has won and covered those spreads by an average of 6+ points. So there's some very good selling value. However, you have to take note of the quality of opponent and the difference of what works against that opponent and what doesn't. What works against this Southern Illinois team is being able to get on the defensive glass, get out into transition, and have capable ball handlers that can spot up from the three-point range and not allow Southern Illinois' defense to get settled. With Drake, they're not going to have to worry about that. And that's one of the reasons why they weren't able to beat Evansville or cover in the first game. They weren't able to stop the three-point shooting. And with Drake, you don't have to really worry about that because this is not a three-point shooting Drake team. This is a Drake team that wins with defense. They'll turn you over, get on the fast break, and they'll score the old-fashioned way. This is a team that has very good three-point defense. So guys like Ben Harvey and Marcus Domas are going to probably find it a little more difficult to get a good look at the bucket, even though we know they're going to keep on hoisting them up. I think that with Drake, you mentioned him, Roman Penn. He's the main man for this team. When you watch him play, he's the one that gets guys into spaces to be successful. I think with him being on the floor and not getting into foul trouble is a critical aspect of this analysis that we have to bring up and we have to take note of. Because if Roman Penn ends up on the bench early in the first half, that's going to present quite a bit of issues for Drake. We've seen Drake a little stumble in some first half, specifically in the first game against Indiana State. However, at home, I do not think this is going to happen. They know what they're going up against matchup-wise and what they're going to have to do defensively, and that's chase guys off the three-point line. But it's not all cookies and cream when it comes to just chasing Southern Illinois off the three-point line and then extinguishing their offense. You have to be aware of guys like Lance Jones and Trent Brown, who are very physical, undersized guards, but they are not afraid to take it against the trees. I've watched enough of these games. I watched Southern Illinois against North Dakota. I watched both the Evansville games. I have a good read on both these MVC teams, and I'll say this. If Drake can minimize their free throw issues, if they can score at a rate that is acceptable and not really including their Chicago State numbers, this is a team that wins on the glass and wins with defense first. The offense comes afterwards. And when I think about Shaquan Hempel, the Green Bay transfer, going down low against my fellow and your fellow Canadian Kyle Filwich, I feel bad for him because he's not going to be able to deal with the strength, speed, and athleticism that Hempel is going to provide. This is a game where I think there is going to be less scoring than we have been accustomed to seeing with both these teams. Both these teams have done a very good job in first halves of limiting their opponent to under 30 points. And I think that is a trend that continues where the scoring does pick up in the second half. When I look at Southern Illinois, this is a typical rebound spot from the Evansville series. But Southern Illinois needs to get to the free throw line often and make their free throws in order to stay in this game. One thing to note with Southern Illinois, they do have outright wins on the road versus Murray State, versus Butler. So if you went with the double-digit dog on the road, I wouldn't blame you because if you've done it already twice this year, you cashed some pretty nice tickets. However, this is a common opponent. This is an opponent that is familiar with them. And I don't think that Southern Illinois walks into Drake and ends their ATS streak. I'm going to take Drake at this discounted number because if there was 13s available and now there's 11.5s, that could be the difference between a cover and not. I'm going to take Drake full game, and I'm going to take this full game under also. I think that Drake locks down defensively. Maybe one half is higher scoring than the other. I have extreme confidence in this Drake defensive team.
Well, I've pulled up Bet365 and give a third book here because one of the difficulties Max has to deal with is only using these legal licensed books. And we have one 141.5 at FanDuel, 142 at Bet365, 142.5 at Circa. So we'll give you the under 142.5 minus 110. Then you are looking for Drake full game. It's 11.5 everywhere. 11.5 minus 110. So we will hook you up with that. Are you also interested in the first half?
No. With Drake in the first halves, I've had a little bit of hit or miss. And in this game, I'd rather give them the full 40 minutes to accomplish the goal.
All right. Drake Bulldogs minus 11.5 minus 110 at Circa, and the under 142.5 minus 110 also at Circa. All right, let's roll, Max. You have 2 games left on your card, and they're beauties. We start at 7 p.m. Eastern. Houston Cougars, number 5 ranked Houston Cougars, 7-1, 2-1 the American at SMU Mustangs. Houston is 3-point favorites over at Circa with a total at 136. And what a beauty. They're 2.5-point favorites at FanDuel. 136.5 is the total over there. We're in Moody, Coliseum, Dallas, Texas. These 2 squads are strong in the American. We'll start with Houston. 7-game winning streak to start the season. Came to an end on Tuesday night, 65-64 loss at Tulsa as 9.5-point favorites. They're 7-1, 2-1 in the American. Their defense is excellent. They allow just 55.9 points per game. They score 73.6. They hit just 41% from the field. They only get 11.1 assists per game. And it confuses me a bit. Guards Quentin Grimes and Marcus Sasser, the 2 of them together combined for 33.5 points. They are so talented that I would expect them to get more distribution that they don't seem to get. Let's talk about the Mustangs. 6-0, 2-0 in the American, undefeated, and are beating opponents by an average of 19.9 points per game. They came off their Christmas break by winning at Temple, 79-71, and they're led by junior Kendrick Davis, scoring 19.2 points, 7.2 assists, 4.3 rebounds. He's hitting 47.6% from 3. What a beauty you've picked, Max. 7 p.m. Eastern, Houston SMU. Take it away.
Yeah, this is going to be a good old battle of Texas. And Houston, they are a tough, well-rounded, well-coached, possible Sweet 16 type team, Jim. But
I believe that.
Big but, and big butts are great. I don't think I'll be going on them. I don't think I'll be taking them. No. Let me tell you why. SMU, yes, lost Isaiah Mike, lost Tyson Jolly, but they got Darius McNeil. They got Urine, so they got a good rim protector. Guy's working his way in, and he's not alone because they already had a bunch of good front court players. Farron Hunt, Ethan Chargwas, these are guys that are going to give Houston problems. What is one of Houston's only weaknesses? Against talented front courts. Talented front courts can be the kryptonite to beating Houston and staying within numbers. When I look at this SMU team, this is a different team, whether they're at home or on the road. That is clear as day. They haven't had really the toughest conference schedule so far, with what I would deem to be 2 kind of cupcakes with Temple and ECU. With SMU, they've done a good job of making you money, and they've done a good job of making you money at home. That's a trend that I don't see a real reason to get off of. While I do like Houston from a number perspective, and all my projections like Houston, Houston has some issues. I think that when you look at them, they have to limit high percentage looks. That's one of the key components of their defense. And when they can limit you to under 17 or 18 2-point makes a game, that's when they are getting their tempo. They are being successful on limiting you and making you take bad shots. This is a Houston team that does have the tendency to put their opponent on the free throw line. And if you do that against SMU, they will eat you alive. The other issue is your offensive rebounding advantage that you've had against, frankly, teams with very weak front courts going to translate against SMU? I personally do not think so. I think that if Houston's going to win this game and win this game by margin, they're going to have to force SMU into making a lot of mistakes. And with Kendrick Davis having the ball in his hands, I don't think that's really going to be the case. I look at Emmanuel Bandomel, fellow French-Canadian. He has grown into this role. He's really taken advantage of the minutes available. And there are weapons on the bench that don't get mentioned often enough. And I think that with SMU, this is a team that we haven't seen their best game yet. I think tomorrow is that day. I'm taking SMU all day, every day. Let's go Mustangs.
Woo. Do you want them on the money line? They're +2 at Bet365, +2.5 at FanDuel, and +3 at Circa.
Oh, no. I'll take the +3 for show purposes.
Okay.
But you can guarantee that if I see an opportunity to live bet that money line when I'm watching the game, that my degenerate right clicking finger will click, 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 click.
I love it. What concerns me is that the wake-up call Tulsa gave Houston. Other than that, I love it. Does that concern you at all, that Houston is an angry group?
Yes, it's definitely a situational spot, Jim, but the front court advantage that SMU is going to bring into this game, I think, is a very big distinguishing factor. I think that with SMU, not only can they limit you, they do a good job of scoring from the one area that Houston doesn't want you to score from. They put up almost 40 points the first half, 9 threes, and 15 free throw makes a game. That means that they're a team that is consistent offensively. It's just a matter of will it translate this year versus Houston's defense. And without having Nate Hinton for Houston, that's been the biggest disadvantage. And the caveat is everybody on Houston's had trouble shooting the basketball. Tons of ISO by Quentin Grimes. Caleb Mills is just getting back in the lineup. And Marcus Sasser has to be delivered the ball to get a really good shot at the rim. And if he gets hot from 3, he needs someone to give him and put him in the spot to do it. I don't really fear Houston in that way. And if a team gets hot offensively versus them, they can beat them, especially on the road.
It's a great breakdown. Absolutely great breakdown. We have a home dog in SMU that Max is on. And then we get to, for me, the game of the night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Number 19th ranked Northwestern Wildcats, 6-2, 3-1 the Big Ten, at the team that I've fallen madly in love with, Max. Number 16th ranked Michigan Wolverines, 8-0, 3-0 in the Big Ten. We're in Ann Arbor, Michigan for this. Max, I was, drinking the juice, and I did message you that I think this team can play the Zags. Maybe I was getting a little too excited, but I need to make future bets on Michigan as soon as possible from what I've seen so far. Let's talk about Northwestern first. Had their 4-game winning streak snapped in the 87-72 loss. Let me pull this up. I feel like I've got that wrong here. Their loss was at Penn State, right? Why do I have it at Iowa? Sorry, thank you. Their loss was Iowa. I had the wrong team up there. Coming off the 87-72 loss at Iowa, they were coming off 3 big wins over Michigan State, Indiana, and Ohio State. They scored 83.6 points per game. They allowed just 65.4 points. They hit 48% from the field. They get 19.5 assists per game, and they are so balanced. Man, 9 players averaging over 15.5 minutes per game. So many different weapons. Michigan is undefeated. That victory at Maryland was so complete. 84-73. They do everything well. Score 82.3 points, allow 68.4. They hit 52.3% from the field. They get 17.6 assists per game. Hunter Dickinson is one special freshman. He's scoring 16.6 points per game, getting 8.8 rebounds. He's hitting 72.6% from the field. You have him with 6'7" senior Isaiah Livers. You have 6'9" sophomore Franz Wagner. And you have one hell of a front court, one hell of a basketball team. And I'm in love, Max. But 8.5-point favorites after that big win. Let's let you be the expert here. 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Northwestern, Michigan. Take it away.
Jim, I can understand why you've fallen in love with this Michigan team, but I'm going to tell you to pump the brakes on that. Let me just put it like this. Michigan, they've been beaten on bums of the Big Ten. The guys that take out your garbage. The guys that frickin' clean your bidet after you've had a couple liquid you-know-what's in it. So I'm not really feeling the love for these types of wins that a lot of other people are. And I'll say this. There are a lot of things that you can like about what you've seen out of Michigan. Michigan has done a very good job of acclimating and getting acclimated Mike Smith to the system, to the quality and the strength and size of the Big Ten. What I've watched from Mike Smith that I didn't think was going to happen was that he was going to facilitate the offense. He was going to be able to defend Big Ten guards, and he was going to be able to take good shots when his team needs it. He's ticked all those boxes and has made me a believer. Throw in Eli Brooks and his familiarity with the program and the system. You have what the one area of concern that I thought for Michigan was point guard play. You lose Xavier Simpson, now you replace them with these guys. That's what you think of in the first hand. Now we know, we've seen how these guys play, and I think that by the numbers, you have to give Northwestern respect in this matchup. Against Iowa at home, those are circumstances that are hard to overcome. You want to play Iowa when they're coming into your building. With Northwestern, yes, this is a situational rebound spot. For Michigan, this is a situational letdown spot if you think Maryland is better than Northwestern, which I do not. I think with Northwestern, what you had against Iowa was just poor shooting performances. They had what some people will say a questionable start to the season. They may be fraudulent. There is no questioning what they've been able to do as far as putting the ball in the bucket. When you look at guys like Miller Kopp and Chase Audace and Boo Buie, these are guys that if they have a good shooting game all in the same game, you're not going to beat this team by double digits. You got to lock these guys down in order to lock down Northwestern. I think with Pete Nance and guys like Robbie Barron, you really got capable, athletic, and versatile front court players that will give you high scoring production on a game-to-game basis. Foul trouble is always something that I'm worried about with this team. They are well coached. I think that they now know the pressures and what they need to do better on the road coming off the Iowa loss. But frankly, it's really hard for me to take Michigan in this spot, not being more tested in conference. When I look at this game and when I look at my numbers, the one thing that jumps out on the page is the over. When we look at this recent history of how these teams have been lined in their most recent games, we're talking about lines in the 135 range and below. We're not talking 144, 145. So there is obviously a fear by the bookmakers, and the analytics are saying so. This is a Northwestern team that makes a lot of threes, around 10 a game. They make around 15 free throws. They get on the offensive glass. They have crisp, very good ball movement to the tune of 1.8 assist to ratio turnover. there's no reason for me not to think that Michigan's going to be able to score the basketball on their home court. They have equally good assist-to-turnover ratios. They do a good job of limiting turnovers. Northwestern does a good job of limiting turnovers. Neither of these teams are really ball hawks, so you're going to be able to get into rhythm and get into your offense. And frankly, when you look at the amount of buckets that both these teams score in high percentage areas, on drives, at the free throw line, and on dunks, it's hard not to like the over. I'm going to make the over an official play for the show, Jim, because I just have to believe that these offenses, although they are capable of locking down, are going to be open for business tomorrow. If Michigan's three-point defense remains at around 37 to 39% like it has been so far this season, Northwestern could come in and surprise Michigan and win this game outright. But for show purposes, I'm only going to take the over.
Very, very exciting breakdown. I'm not going to take Michigan at this number, but I'm not going to back Northwestern plus 8.5. Max, you have some options here for the total. You have FanDuel hanging the 144.5. The over's at minus 115 juice. Bet365 is at 145, circa 145.5, both at minus 110. So do you want Bet365's 145 at minus 110, or do you want FanDuel? Excuse me. Do you want FanDuel's 144.5 at minus 115?
I'll take the Bet365.
Bet365. So we have the over 145 at minus 110 at Bet365. And what a beauty that's going to be. 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Northwestern comes to town to face the Wolverines in Big Ten action. Max, that concludes your card here. So let's review everything. First off, you're on the Monmouth Hawks plus 4, minus 110. You're also interested in the first half if you can get plus 2.5 or 3. Then you're on St. Joseph's Hawks at plus 11.5 at minus 104 at FanDuel. But we hadn't pulled up Bet365. You do deal with the very difficult task of only using legal licensed books that the other Americans watching the show can bet as well. And Bet365 has a 12 available for you at minus 115. So do you like your 11.5 at minus 104 at FanDuel, or would you want to switch that in for a plus 12 at minus 115?
Yeah, I'll take the 12. In that situation, it's worth it.
All right. Plus 12 at minus 115. That is available at Bet365. You're also on the under 152.5 at minus 106, available at FanDuel. Then at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, you are on the Minnesota Golden Gophers money line minus 102 at FanDuel. 6 p.m. Eastern, you are on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets at minus 905 at minus 104. I'm going to be joining you on that look. Your first half that you want to add, you have a limit of 6.5. You're also on the under 140.5 at minus 110. It's circa. Then we have the Salukis at the Drake Bulldogs. What a fun matchup that is. Combined 18-1 for these two teams. You are on the under 142.5 at minus 110 at circa. At 7 p.m. Eastern, you are on the SMU Mustangs plus 3 at minus 110 in the battle.
Sorry, Jim.
Yeah.
Did we not add Drake full game?
Oh, we do have Drake full game. My fault. It's right there. Minus 11.5, minus 110 at circa. Thank you. That is right there. Then we have SMU plus 3 at minus 110 at circa. And you close up your card with the over 145 in Northwestern Michigan Wolverines. How's that sound, Max?
That sounds perfect.
Beautiful. There you have it. Thank you guys so much for watching us here on odds.com. After being in the black 7 of 8 days, Max goes 6-6 on New Year's Eve, December 31st. This is his first action on the show in 2021. He's sitting at 78 wins, 61 losses, hitting at 56.1%, plus 11.07 units, ROI plus 7.96%, average line minus 110. Max, my man, any last words for these great cappers watching at home?
Yeah, listen, if you don't want to make babies, wrap them up. That's a real simple solution. I had to tell a fellow follower that the other day. And otherwise, Don't eat pineapple on your pizza. It doesn't belong there.
Wow.
Don't believe what people tell you. It doesn't belong.
That's harsh. The babies thing was okay, but pineapples. I had pineapples on my pizza today. But as long as you keep paying me, as long as you keep putting cash in my pocket with your NCAA basketball picks, I'll write off pineapples. Fuck pineapples. I don't need pineapples. I want winners, and that's what you supply. On behalf of Maxwell Smart, myself, Jimmy the Bag, and everybody at odds.com, thank you guys for watching. Happy New Year. Happy 2021. Let's get cash in these NCAA tickets.